morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thank you for joining me here in Season 5-ish of the Logical Christian Podcast. I'm your Logical Christian, Dan Irwin. If you're here for what to think, you've come to the wrong place. I'll give you my view on current events, politics, science, religion, and whatever else from a logical, most importantly, a Christian worldview. But this is more about how to think. Don't just accept what you're told, ask questions and dig deep. Links for the material are in the notes if you'd like to follow along, and with that, let's go be logical Christians. You know how you're never, ever supposed to use words like always or never, and how nothing is ever everything or nothing because that's always statistically impossible? Of course you know that. Everyone knows that. There's not no one who's never heard of that. Well, almost not no one. On today's episode, first we're going to get all entangled up in thought, and then we won't give up, no we won't give in, till we reach the end, and then we'll start again. No, we won't leave. We want to try everything. We want to try even though we could fail. So grab your thoughts needle. You're going to need it to pick these suckers apart, and then good luck getting that song out of your head, and you're welcome. Now, as French scientist and philosopher René Descartes says, I think, therefore, here we go. Johannes Kepler was a smart man. Without the help of AI, Google, an iPhone, computers, a Texas Instruments TI-85 graphing calculator, probably the best graphing calculator ever made, or any calculator for that matter, or any other fantastic and amazing convenience tool we have today, he discovered the laws of planetary motion. He was a mathematician, a teacher, an astronomer, astrologer, natural philosopher, music theorist, and an author of both science and science fiction books. He was born 2 days after Christmas in the year of our Lord, 1571, in the city of Wildenstadt in Germany as part of the Holy Roman Empire, and died just short of 59 years later, 344 years, 364 days before my birthday, on November 15th, 1630. He's considered to be one of the fathers of modern science, modern astronomy, natural science, and the scientific method. Kepler, although a very learned and respected man, faced various levels of persecution for his faith. He lived in a world of Catholic rule, as what's described as an unorthodox Lutheran with Calvinist sympathies. One of his more famous short quotes is some variation of, quote, O God, I am thinking thy thoughts after thee. Kepler believed that there was a direct connection between the physical and spiritual world, that God had created all, including the laws that govern all creation, and that it was our job to strive to uncover those laws. At the end of his book, Harmonies of the World, which is a classic page-turner, probably, hey, how about you don't worry about if I've read it or not? He concluded, quote, Purposely, I break off the dream and the very vast speculation, merely crying out with the royal psalmist, Great is our Lord, and great his virtue, and of his wisdom there is no number. Praise him, ye heavens, praise him, ye sun, moon, and planets. Use every sense for perceiving, every tongue for declaring your Creator. To him be praise, honor, and glory, world without end. Amen. Modern science was created, or founded, whichever you'd like, not entirely, but by a large number of Christian individuals who believed, as Kepler stated, that science is the process of thinking God's thoughts after him. Science, in large part, has been hijacked by Satan in order to bring confusion and chaos to the human world today, while very cleverly masking it as actual science. If you believe, as I do, that God is completely and totally sovereign, then as we see in Job, Satan is not able to do anything he's not permitted, and I say that in quotes, as I believe maybe directed would be a better word, but he's not able to do anything God doesn't want him to do. So why the takeover of science? Well, as with so many other questions of confusion and evil in this world, well, it's for God's glory. It's for the good of his children, and it's as a judgment on the world. All right, that's kind of a semi-digression, right? I semi-think so. Anyway, I agree with Kepler. We should strive to understand how this creation works, from the motion of the planets, galaxies, and solar systems, to the function of the bombardier beetle, which is fascinating, by the way, and everything between those two, or larger or smaller. And we should do this because to understand this creation more is to understand the Creator more. Science today, whether they want to admit it or not, is actually doing this very thing with everything they research and discover. Time and time again, we see that science, at least legitimate science, uncovers the absolute amazing design in creation, confirming and affirming the Christian belief in the Christian God and the miraculous creative design displayed by God in all things, as very basically described in the book of Genesis. But does the ability for us to discover have a limit? Are there boundaries around what we're cognitively able to decipher or discern, within which we are confined? Are we limited, at least in large part, to the physical creation as to what we can dissect and reverse engineer? In short, we know that the Bible allows us to discover who God is in the way He's allowed Himself to be revealed to us, but are we limited in what we can discover about how God works? As God is not a physical being, but a spirit, an all-powerful, all-sovereign spirit being, who clearly works within and without the confines of the creation He's created, is it even possible to analyze this thrice holy, infinite God using the scientific method? Should we even attempt to do this? And the answer is apparently yes, on all accounts. I mean, don't be silly. You didn't think I was going to say no to that, did you? See, God isn't as mysterious as He once was. Sure, I mean, He's still God. I mean, we'll let Him keep that title, but we're not Neanderthals anymore, right? We're not huddled in caves when it thunders and lightnings and we just think the gods are angry at us, right? No. We're a whole bunch of smarter than that. We're not just Homo sapien, meaning wise man. We're Homo sapien now. Gay wise man. No, wait, strike that. We're Homo sapien now. Wise man. That's better. We have science now. We've got the best of the best minds ever created or evolved or whatever, who not only now think God's thoughts after Him, but, well, then now we're starting to pick apart how God works, how God thinks. Found on FoxNews.com headline, "The Quantum Mystery That May Explain How God Knows Every Thought You Have." Now, yes, I'm well aware we're back into quantum science. My algorithm is so jacked up. And at this point, just by clicking on these types of articles, I'm just feeding the machine. I know it. But it sure does seem like the world of science, both with quotes around it and without, the lab coat wearing, science talking guys, it sounds like more and more they're leaning more and more heavily on one of two concepts for most things they can't really explain. They're either leaning on artificial intelligence or quantum something, or in some cases both. So what better way to explain the unexplainable than to use something that's either touted as much smarter or wiser than we, or us, I'll have to ask Grok which is correct, or to use something that's presented as above us, beyond the understanding of, the common schlub with that little glisten of drool still shimmering on his chin. Well, if them scientists done says it, and they's real smart, I guess it must be right. Yeah. Now, before we dive into the article, before we dive into the Bible, before we dive into the deep end of quantum theory, yet again, why do we care? Well, let me put the implication, either by design or as a byproduct, right up front. See, if we can take something like the omniscience of God, the ability for God to know all things and determine that it's, relatively speaking, easily explainable using science, we begin to box God into the realm of the created rather than the creator. Once we do that, God no longer exists as God, capital G, but as a being bound by physical science, no different than you or I. And haven't we been doing that, at least in the modern era, for the last, at least 150 years? Like I said, modern era. Isn't that exactly what the theory of evolution is? At least the blasphemous mixing of the godless theory with the biblical account of creation. This is the evolutionary creation theory, the long age theory or day age theory, that the mytho-historical view of creation as told in Genesis is cute. It's fun for kids, but the reality per science is that God kind of spun the top or pulled the rope start or whatever, got the machine running, and then just let that brutal, blood-soaked process of evolution take over. Now, this is a theory that heretical faux Christian organizations like BioLogos, an organization who likes the Bible but really likes science and simply believes that the Bible got it wrong, or not complete or whatever, and that God needs some help in telling the accurate story of creation because clearly science shows that the Bible isn't correct. This is the organization started by that fake Christian Francis Collins. You might recognize that name. He was the old guitar-wielding NIH director who, along with the criminal murderer Anthony Fauci, is responsible for millions of deaths due to COVID-19, and I think we'll find probably even more deaths due to the COVID-19 so-called vaccine, which isn't a vaccine at all in any way. Collins should be in prison for the rest of his life, which, I mean, let's be honest, isn't going to be for that long. He's pretty old, for his crimes against humanity. That's just my opinion, and the opinion of many others, but my opinion. Or take Reasons to Believe with founder Hugh Ross, another so-called scientist, I guess, who loves the Bible but just has a much higher understanding. Now, a greater insight than the Bible can bring to the account of creation because he's a man of science. He's yet another heretic who should be dismissed by all Christendom and set apart as apostate. These men and organizations believe that God can be God if he'd like, but it would be better if he'd just admit that, he's bound by science so we can all work from an equal playing field. Not sure if that analogy works quite right, but you get it. What's disingenuous about these men, about scientists who claim Christianity, but then claim that science, I guess, supersedes what's very clearly written in the Bible, is that they pick and choose what they believe from the biblical text. They're fine with some miracles, but deny God's ability to miraculously create. But as men of science, they've shown that when they believe science corrects, contradicts, or clarifies the Bible, they'll definitely go with science over the Bible every time. That brings us back to the implications of saying that we may have discovered how this God being claims omniscience, at least in the thought lives of all humanity, using science. This just kind of de-gods God, just a little bit more, slowly pulling him down to our level. See, the population of the plain in the land of Shinar banded together contrary to God's command and attempted to build a tower up to heaven. Quote, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into the heaven." Now, today, we're not really interested in elevating ourselves to godlike status. We've actually just thrown Toe Mater's toe hook up into heaven, and we're trying to drag it on down to earth so we can all be like God. Now, you may think I'm over-dramatizing this. Maybe I am. Am I throwing up a straw man just to knock it down and tear it apart? It's possible. But what I see is man's attempt to scientifically explain God, and by doing so, prove that God really isn't that different from you or I. Not really. And if we can prove that the miracles of God really aren't that miraculous, or that the powers of God really aren't that powerful, then we can diminish his commands, diminish his authority, and live the lives we want because, well, what's he going to do about it? Now, with all that said, or ranted, I guess we should dive into the article. Let's see what they say regarding quantum theory and God's ability to know our thoughts. The byline to the headline is always interesting, which is why I usually quote it, and I'll go ahead and do it again here. Quote, "Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, but the phenomenon he mocked may illuminate the divine." Okay, one more rabbit trail to kick that final dog on as we fall through the black hole of digression. Never mind. Einstein was one of the founders of the basics of quantum theory, but he didn't agree with the inferences other scientists made, or some of the other theories that others branched off of the basic quantum mechanical theory. He believed that God was in control of this creation, which counters the concept of randomness that quantum mechanics potentially suggests. Specifically, Einstein did not agree with the concept of quantum entanglement. This is where the quote in the byline comes in. Einstein couldn't fathom the idea that two particles are intrinsically associated or connected with each other so that something that happens to a particle here causes an effect on the linked particle somewhere else, no matter how far apart those particles are in the universe. In other words, Einstein had common sense. You see, the concept of quantum entanglement is, in my humble opinion, horse hockey. I guess that makes me as smart as Einstein. Let's just go with that. So back to the article. The opening paragraph states, quote, "For millennia, the concept of an omniscient God, a deity who knows every sparrow that falls, every thought that forms, and every star that burns across the vast expanse of the cosmos, has boggled the human imagination. How in the world can any entity, no matter how supreme, know everything that's happening everywhere all at once, in real time, and with atomic-level intimacy?" And I don't know, has the concept of an omniscient God really boggled the human imagination for eternity? I mean, sure, the idea of a human being able to know everything about everything is an impossible thing to conceptualize. But a sovereign God, regardless of your religious belief, that's an entirely different bucket, right? Now, again, do we know how? No. Do we need to know how? No. Can we believe that a God, again, any religious system at this point, who created all things, who sustains all things, could know all things? And yes, we can believe that. But don't worry, even though this mind-boggling ancient religious concept sounds impossible, science has come to the rescue. And how? Well, quote, "When one plumbs the depths of modern physics, one discovers something utterly profound. The concept of divine omniscience is not just plausible, its mechanism is woven into the very fabric of space-time. This deeply mysterious mechanism is called quantum entanglement." Well, one is very interested in this one here, intrigued even. So that's our old friend, quantum entanglement. And now for the fun part. Quote, here's how it works. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. Quote, "Two objects, for example, subatomic particles, that are intimately related and then widely separated somehow maintain an invisible, intimate, and unbreakable connection. One object might be in a lab on Earth, and the other might be clear across the universe, billions of light years away, yet whatever happens to one is known and felt by the other instantaneously, without any delay whatsoever." Can you believe that Einstein could possibly raise an objection to that? What a maroon, right? I mean, come on, Einstein, time to catch up there, sleepyhead. Sheesh. But no, Einstein would maintain that it broke his, quote, "sacred principle," as our author states it, quote, "of his theory of special relativity. Nothing, not even information, can travel faster than the speed of light." Now, look, I don't know if that's possible. Einstein was much smarter than me, and even though he's been dead for 70 years, I still wouldn't want to face whatever's left of him in a game of Jeopardy. So can anything travel faster than the speed of light? Well, we've proven light can. I mean, in the right conditions, the right temperatures. If I remember correctly, temperatures just above absolute zero, light travels faster than the speed of light, or is that how they slow it all the way down? I don't know. It's something like that. Might have the conditions wrong. I'm going to let you look it up. But regardless of his theory being right or wrong, the idea of two things separated by some infinite distance being able to communicate infinitely fast is ludicrous on its face. Could it be possible? I mean, I have to say no. There's no logical possibility this can be true. But our author states, quote, "Even though he was ultimately proven wrong, both theoretically and experimentally, Einstein was right to call quantum entanglement spooky. To this day, the instantaneous signals passing between entangled objects are like nothing we can explain. They're something totally different from radio waves and light signals." So proven wrong theoretically, I don't care. That doesn't matter. But was he actually experimentally proven wrong? Well, according to an article on SciTechDaily.com, they say that yes, quantum mechanics has been proven experimentally. Quote, "Experiments have since proven that entanglement is very real and fundamental to nature. Furthermore, quantum mechanics has now been proven to work not only at very short distances, but also at very great distances." They say that a Chinese communication satellite named Mischius, something like that, quote, "relies on quantum entanglement between photons that are separated by thousands of kilometers." This experimental proof started with a man named John Clauser in the late 60s, early 70s. He and his team allegedly proved quantum entanglement between two particles, first at 10 feet apart, then 3 more experiments at ever-increasing distances, and the article now says the experiments have been conducted hundreds of times at various labs across the world, proving that it's real. Now look, I'm not a quantum mechanic, I'm no quantum physicist, I'm barely an engineer, just look at my college GPA, but I am a realist, and I'd like to think of myself as, like an amateur logician. And the very idea of quantum entanglement is illogical. I've looked up the experiments, and it seems that these articles I'm running into say that it's been proven hundreds of times, that it's been proven with photons and quarks and qubits, and they say that it's an instantaneous effect on one when something is done to the other, faster than the speed of light, in at least one case 10,000 times faster. Now, AI has told me it's been proven without line of sight, and I'll be honest, I have no idea. When I read on this Chinese satellite, it says that it's limited to line of sight and can't operate when not in sunlight. But if quantum entanglement is true, at least as a claim, why would the satellite need sun? And why would it need line of sight? Like I said, it makes no logical sense to think that two particles separated by any distance, just pick one, are linked to each other regardless of anything. The inferences of this theory move into the concept that something doesn't necessarily exist if you're not looking at it, right? When you're looking at the moon, it exists. When you turn around, it may not. Don't know. They believe that with this sort of theory, this quantum entanglement, that teleportation could be real. And I'm sorry, once again, I'm going to have to say no. Okay. But back to the article. Quote, "Indeed, one would be justified in calling the connection between widely separated entangled objects otherworldly. I say that because quantum entanglement clearly offers us a stunning scientific explication of the old age belief in an omniscient God. The author suggests that God is not a God of observation, but a God of atomic entanglement with his creation. Quote, in other words, the existence of quantum entanglement offers us a fresh perspective on God's omniscience. It suggests that God's awareness of the universe is not obtained through observation. It's acquired via an intimate, instantaneous, spooky connection. He states that using the concept of entanglement with regard to God, he wouldn't just know something, he would feel every single thing that happens to every single atom, regardless of location, across the entire universe. He says that this breaks down the wall between factual science and blind faith, that it illuminates the, quote, majesty of the divine. It shows us how deeply connected this universe is with unseen forces that should leave us in awe and amazement at the mystery of it all. He concludes that we should see the universe for what it is, quote, a grand entangled tapestry, and to, quote, above all consider this, the same invisible architecture that instantaneously and intimately connects physical objects across the cosmic void is of the very same design that connects you, instantaneously, intimately, and eternally, to the mind and spirit of God. And doesn't that get us where we don't need to go? If we're all part of everything, all entangled with God and the universe, and isn't God and the universe one? And wouldn't we be one with God and the universe then? And wouldn't that further infer that God isn't necessarily unique? I mean, if we're all entangled, wouldn't we basically be God as well? And wouldn't this call into question miracles? If this is just affected particles over here that are making particles do things over there, it's not really miraculous then. That would just be physics. And for that matter, all the experiments that allegedly prove quantum entanglement have been done using physical particles, right? I mean, photons are light particles. Quarks, protons, qubits, and the like are all physical atomic particles, right? Well, what's a thought? Is a thought a physical thing? Is there a thought particle? There may be electrical impulses, but those impulses aren't particles. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. So even if quantum entanglement were real, and I continue to deny that it is, how does that apply to something conceptual like thought? And to answer my own question, because there ain't nobody else here, I don't see how it could. I do agree with our author that science doesn't harm God's majesty in any way. Rather, literal scientific study serves only to illuminate and verify God's glory. But using science to attempt to define and demystify the very nature of God is not, I'd argue, bringing him glory. From my perspective, it's quite literally attempting to drag him down to our level, to fit him into a human box so that humanity can appear to, relatively speaking, ascend to God's level. God is a miracle-working God. He is an unfathomable God. He is an infinitely powerful God. He's a God that we can know personally, but a God who is infinitely mysterious. He is a God who is bound by one thing. He can never not be God. And because of that, he must live within his own boundaries. A God who cannot lie, a God who doesn't break promises, who can't sin, and on and on and on. He's a God who lives outside the bounds of space, time, and matter. He sustains those things for our benefit, but he isn't bound by it. And he's not bound by the laws of this creation that he personally put in place. He works miracles, 120 to 160 or more in the Bible, depending on how you count them and classify them. And although God may use physical means to bring about the miracle itself is a stepping outside of the laws and bounds of this creation. Otherwise, it's quite simply just not a miracle, not in the strict sense of the term. Thomas Jefferson did not believe in miracles. What's known as the Jefferson Bible is Jefferson's Bible that had every passage that contained a miracle cut out of it. Jefferson didn't believe anything could happen unless it existed within the material bounds of science. He was wrong. But many people have the same belief. Either miracles don't happen or miracles are explainable by science, either now or at some point in the future with enough scientific investigation, right? We'll figure all these out. Well, let me be very clear. If a miracle is explainable, it's simply not a miracle. The same goes with God and his nature. Isaiah 55, 8-9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." Now, this wasn't written by some naive ancient human that made this observation about a magical sky god that they didn't understand. No, that was God saying that about himself. That statement still applies today because, well, humans are still humans, and believe it or not, God is still God. Our thoughts and our ways are not God's. His ways, his thoughts, his nature are simply incomprehensible by man, except for the small amount he's revealed to us and allowed us to understand. Now, to the point of this article, we absolutely know that God knows our very thoughts. He knows our thoughts, our needs, our desires, our sins, our everything. He doesn't need us to tell him, but he invites us to commune with him. And regardless, Psalm 139 says, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up, you discern my thoughts from afar." We see examples of God knowing our thoughts, Jesus knowing our thoughts. That should terrify us probably more often than it should comfort us. Or is that just me? Look, I know my thought life. It could use work. Let's just stop there. Am I alone in this? But on the comforting side, the fact that God already knows all things, as he's omniscient and knows all, we can come to him at any time, in any way, and speak to him as his child. We're not revealing secrets. We're not coming clean in the general sense of that term. We're not divulging previously unknown hidden information. We can't tell him anything he doesn't know, so we can just come and talk to him. God, in no uncertain terms, knows our thoughts. There are arguments on both sides of the debate as to if angels or fallen angels, including Satan, can read our thoughts. I happen to fall on the side of no, they can't. Compelling arguments can be made on both sides, but that's all argued from feeling. As far as I know, there aren't any examples of angels, fallen or not, reading the thoughts of man. But God is God. There is no other. He knows our thoughts. In fact, he knows our thoughts before we think them. Psalm 139:4, "Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely." How would quantum entanglement explain that? That would be the equivalent, in a manner of speaking, to a particle reacting based on what the associated particle will do at some point in the future. For as, let's say, cuckoo crazy as I believe the theory of quantum entanglement is, there's nobody that I've found that claims some sort of future casting ability in this theory. Lastly, let's say I agree, in a very loose manner of speaking, that, quote, God is strongly entangled with the whole of creation, right down to the very atoms of our being, by virtue of his being the source of the universe and everything in it. And this explains how he knows our thoughts, because he's tied to us on the atomic level. Let's just pretend that I buy into that. Well, how does quantum entanglement explain God not only knowing our thoughts, the thoughts of 8.3 billion humans, but personally listening to our words in addition to knowing our thoughts, evaluating all of those billions upon billions upon billions of thoughts and words, and then acting on each and every one of those thoughts in a very personal manner? No, God isn't a being and has no nature that could ever be explained by science. The moment that statement is proven false is the moment God ceases to be God. And no, we're not the uniquely wise generation of human who has finally started to figure out God. The fact that we have more computing power than ever in human history doesn't make us wise, it doesn't make us smart, and I'd argue it hurts our intelligence as much as it helps. And while I'm at it, no, quantum entanglement isn't a thing. I don't care what the theoretical physicists claim. I think we'd all be better off rather than listening to those who rely on breakthroughs in order to obtain their grant money, taking heed of the words of the wise sage Judge Judy instead. Quote, "If it doesn't make sense, it's usually not true." I am the Lord, and there is no other. Besides me, there is no God. Isaiah 45:5. There is none like you, O Yahweh. You are great, and great is your name in might. Jeremiah 10:6. There is none like you among the gods, O Lord, nor are there any works like yours. Psalm 86:8. Indeed, their rock is not like our rock. Deuteronomy 32:31. Be content to know that some things we simply cannot know. Maybe one day, on the other side of glory, we'll have a better understanding of how God works. But I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for that. Rejoice that we serve an omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient God who not only loves his children, but saves, guides, and corrects his children as well. Rest soundly knowing that our God is an unfathomable God, standing outside of his creation, able to bring about his plan without the help of anyone else, who can't be now, nor will ever be explained by scientific theory. He's God. There is none like him. Hey, I read a book. Yeah, I know, real impressive, right? Well, it was a big book, so stop it. Just quit picking on me. This was actually like maybe 2.5 books in one book. It was 617 pages, 95 chapters, 95 pages of pictures, because, the first page of each chapter. So what book is this? Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. So I got this, maybe Christmas of 2024. I can't remember if it was 2024 or 2025. My reading last year was really bad, so I got behind in books. It could have been either one. I don't remember. It was published in 2023, so toss-up as to which one it was. Now, this book took me like 3 months to read, which, look, I could have done it sooner, but I've moved most of my reading time to my lunch break at work. So that's 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week maximum. But interspersed in there is reading another book by John Piper, chapter by chapter, for my men's discipleship group. I'll review that one sometime in July or August after we finish with that one. And since I'm at work, there are times when I'm working through lunch simply because I need to do that for whatever reason. So 3 months to read it, but the overall hours reading, probably not too bad, to be honest. So this book seems to be a very comprehensive look at Elon's life from birth in 1971 to the first launch of his massive rocket, the Starship, in April 2023. I think I'd be safe in saying that most of us, yours truly included, really heard of Elon Musk with regard to Tesla, and not at the very start of his getting involved in what we see today, but a little ways in, like the Model S days. So like 2007 to 2009, somewhere in there. Now, the period prior to Tesla covers about 23-ish chapters, depending on where you want to draw the line. So from 1971 to, say, 2007, 36 years of his book, of his life, of this book, is 23 chapters, totaling just over 150 pages. And from 2007 to 2023, so only 16 years, well, that accounts for the other 72 chapters and 460-plus pages. And that feels right. Like, over the last 15 or so years, Musk has been moving at the speed of his SpaceX rockets in what he's doing, or done, or tried. And my goodness, has he done a lot in his life. I mean, think about it. Prior to SpaceX, starting in 2001, he tried creating a different X.com, different than what he's renamed Twitter to today. He created something called Zip2, and then he helped create PayPal. Then he created SpaceX, then took over the fledgling startup named Tesla, in which he made a side business of Tesla Energy, as well as pushing for autonomous driving, auto drive, full self-drive, whatever it's called, technology. Then he created Starlink, the Boring Company, Neuralink, Optimus Robots, and he took over Twitter, created the Cybertruck and Starship, and his latest real deep dive has been into AI, which he was into before, but not as heavily as he is now. Just trying to integrate that into everything. In the midst of all that, he's been married and divorced multiple times. He's had multiple children with wives and or girlfriends, sometimes directly, sometimes through surrogates. And this is all from someone who has been diagnosed on the autism spectrum as having Asperger's. Now, personally, I don't know about all these diagnoses. Knowing how the psychiatric Bible, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, or DSM, is contrived with the goal of being able to flowchart your way to a diagnosis that links directly to what meds should be given, and knowing that Big Pharma is mostly a big scam. They're not there to make you well, they're there to help you manage symptoms and keep you as a repeat customer. Feel free to roll your eyes and disagree. Trust me, I get it. I'd say that we're overdiagnosing everyone, and we're simply hell-bent on putting a label on everyone and everything. I can guarantee that if I were to take even an online test, I'd come back somewhat on the autistic scale. I'd also land somewhere on the ADHD scale. And all of you would too, or at least most of you. That said, Elon is clearly a very unique personality. I find him fascinating, generally speaking, but I'm torn as to if I'd ever recommend him to myself or anyone as someone to look up to or to try to emulate. Now, is he a genius? Sort of. Is he crazy? Probably. Is he moral? Not really, but kind of. Is he ethical? Yeah, I would say he is ethical. Most importantly, is he a Christian? No. I know the Babylon Bee folks invited him for an interview a few years back, and they rather ham-fistedly presented a watered-down quasi-gospel, which was really disappointing, as those guys are Christians. They know the gospel. They just totally screwed it up for whatever reason, probably because they were talking to one of the richest men in the world. At the end of their poorly done presentation, they asked him if he believed what they told him, or wanted it, or something like that. And Elon kind of said, sure, that sounds nice. And they pronounced him a brother in Christ. So that's not how that works. Elon is in no way saved. You shall know them by their fruits. Elon is not saved. I hope one day that he will be. But as of now, no. We can be praying for him. I really fear that the Babylon Bee guys did more harm than good with what they did. Anyway, continuing my disjointed rambling, Elon has his own view of what's morally right. He finds no issue with multiple wives, multiple divorces, multiple other women, having multiple kids. He is very concerned with the survival of the human race, which, to be honest, is one sign that he's not saved. He's very concerned that the population will start to shrink, and that's a bad thing. Now, I agree. So he's trying to repopulate the Earth personally as much as possible. And that's fine, no problem with that concept. The way he's gone about it is questionable at best, but look, if he's not a Christian, and he's not, then from a worldly perspective, his tactics are generally fine. He's not abandoning his kids, which is good. He's just making a lot of them and letting them live with their various mothers. And this concern for humanity, the survival of humanity, is literally his driving force behind just about everything that he's doing. SpaceX wasn't created to fly satellites into orbit. It was created to be able to fund his work in getting men to Mars to start a second human colony before this Earth is destroyed and humanity is wiped out. Starlink wasn't created because he wanted the globe to have internet connectivity. It was created to fund SpaceX. Tesla was not developed into the company it is today because he just really likes electric vehicles. No, he's saving the planet one car at a time because climate change, as you know, is only 10 years away from destroying the planet. It's always just 10 years away. Neuralink was there to improve humanity and to start to merge man and machine because, as we all know, man is really just his thoughts and nothing else. The side benefit of being able to help people hear and see and walk or move when they couldn't before is a very noble goal. But the overall goal is to merge man with machine, but not to the point that others want to take it, replacing man with machine. That goes against what Musk is concerned with. His purchase of Twitter was a knee-jerk, thoughtless move. He admitted that himself, that he trapped himself in, but once he realized that he made the deal, he decided he was going to have a platform that would allow freedom of speech within some loose boundaries, really the loosest boundaries possible, but some boundaries are required. And if he can turn that into his original vision for X.com, being an all-in-one platform for creators, content, speech, and monetary transactions, well, even better. Throughout this book, you see a mix of madman, child, CEO, entrepreneur, genius, vulnerable human, a cold man of stone, and a man who has a very warm heart towards his children, and so on. It'll be interesting to watch him as he moves into the latter years of his life. Will he be a Bill Gates type, a Steve Jobs, a Howard Hughes, or some sort of benevolent philanthropist? I don't know, only time will reveal that. Now, this book was very good. Would I recommend it? Yes, I would. As I said, the overall hours it took me to plow through this thing wasn't actually that bad, to be honest, and I'm just not a fast reader like I once was. But this book is mostly a page-turner. There's constant change of direction in the book, from his manic, all-hands-on-deck blitzes to fix something or create or present something in a time frame that shouldn't be possible, to his life with his wife or girlfriend and his kids, to his chaotic relationship with his dad, his loving relationship with his mom, then back to the latest crisis he's either created for himself or manufactured in his own head or legitimately discovered and wants to correct. The author, Walter Isaacson, who wrote the biography entitled Steve Jobs, as well as others, shadowed Musk for 2 years and was given permission to talk to a large number of Musk's current and past associates, relationships, his family members, and so on. This is not written as a gotcha book, as he cleared all the personal details revealed with Elon before publishing. It's a fascinating book, well-written, well-researched, written with a thoroughness and completeness that only comes from an expert at his craft. You'll most likely come away with a much better understanding of who Musk is, his driving force behind all the seeming chaos of his life, an amazing knowledge of all the irons he has in the fire and the trials, the turmoil, victories, accomplishments, and advancements that have come through Musk's direction, as well as the toll this manic drive to succeed has taken on him at various times in his life. I believe that if you read this book, you'll come away with a newfound, or at least a deeper respect for Musk and all he's doing and trying to do before he dies. Love him or hate him, you can't deny what he's done. The mark on humanity he's left, the legacy he's leaving behind. I mean, Musk will go down in history as a Steve Jobs or an Albert Einstein or a Nikola Tesla, Henry Ford, Ben Franklin. Fill in the blank with your favorite genius, inventor, entrepreneur, philanthropist guy. I think you'll also come away feeling a little sad for him. I mean, first and foremost, his drive behind all he's done and doing, or nearly all, comes from a godless worldview, an unsaved, catastrophist viewpoint, terrified that the world will end and humanity with it. You'll also sympathize with his early childhood and the strained relationship he has with his dad to this very day. But you'll be warmed by the relationship he has with his children, or at least that he tries to have. Now, what you won't walk away with is a view of a multi-billionaire who uses money and influence to play with humanity like we're his own personal chess game. You won't see him as the evil rich. You won't see him as someone you must hate for whichever reason you choose. And I get that our author wasn't writing a hit piece, but he did write on a lot of stuff that would definitely be included in a negative book on Musk. And Musk isn't perfect by far. His life isn't perfect, personal or business. His own family has some very deep, dark, disturbing trials, both with his father and his oldest son, who now identifies as his oldest daughter. The sin-cursed world extends to all, regardless of wealth, and Musk is a very good example of that. It's got to be humbling to see your 52 years of life summed up in only 617 pages. But then again, I don't think there's any way my 50 years of life would take anywhere near that many pages. I haven't done a fraction of anything as compared to Musk. And you know what? I'm actually okay with that. I wouldn't want to be Elon. I wouldn't want to work for Elon. I'm not even sure I'd want to be friends with Elon, but I am fascinated by him. I think EVs are just stupid, flat out, except for a very small minority of Americans, maybe a larger percentage of those who live in smaller countries where an EV makes more sense. But that said, if I were going to have to buy one, it would be a Tesla. I think fully electric plug-in trucks are the absolute dumbest thing to ever be created. Something that looks like a truck but can't be used like a truck, unless you want to charge up every hour or less. But if I were to get one, it would be the rolling dumpster, the Cybertruck. It's also worthless as a truck, but at least it's unique. I love SpaceX. Watching the launches is one of the small pleasures I take in life. I don't plan on ever using Starlink, and I think a colony on Mars is an interesting idea, but pointless, as from a Christian worldview, his reasoning makes no sense. I think Neuralink has amazing promise in helping those with various disabilities regain lost function, but I don't want man and machine to merge, not like so many are advocating for today. And the list goes on with his various endeavors. So to wrap this up, would I recommend this book? Yeah, I really would. It was a fascinating look into Musk's life, his thoughts, personality, and so on. And the only part that got a little slow for me was when the author was digging deeper into AI. I get that it's the current topic of today. It had to be covered because Musk is working hard on artificial intelligence and its incorporation into all of his devices, cars, robots, as well as working to ensure it's a benefit to society. That's one problem he has with Sam Altman and OpenAI. Musk, as one of the co-founders, envisioned it remaining a non-profit tool, an open platform for creators and users, something that would benefit society absent all the evil intent from the other entities working on AI like Google. But Altman, after taking it over, has taken it down a different path. Anyway, that little side trail. I'm just kind of over the AI boom. I'm ready for it to bust, like I'm pretty confident it will, and be relegated to a powerful search tool with some cool extras. So the AI section started to drag for me, as I'm just tired of hearing about it. And honestly, as this book covers so much ground and so many topics, you may find your own specific topic that just drags you down. But that said, I still heartily recommend this book. It's admittedly not for everyone, but if you're a Musk fan, or just curious about him, if you enjoy a good biography, if you're fascinated by Tesla or SpaceX or Neuralink or any of the companies Musk has founded or improved, you won't go wrong with this book. Okay, well with that. And I just feel like this review rambled all over the place, so for that I'm sorry. Hopefully it made it at least a little sense to you, maybe. But with that, I shall bring this book review to a close. As always, let me encourage you to get yourself a good book, find a good time to shut out the noise, the chaos in the world, and sit down and lose yourself in the written word. Your mind and your sanity will thank you. So, get up, get off your duff, and go read something. Well, we've reached the end of this episode of the Logical Christian Podcast. I know, I'm not happy about it either. If you found value in this podcast, like, rate, review, and share if you wouldn't mind. Don't forget to check the show notes for links and contact info. Against logic, there is no armor like ignorance. Lawrence J. Peter. If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Jesus. So stay in the word, stay logical, stay faithful, and until next time, God bless.